I'm going to be honest with you. I was going to do a whole video this week about some of the problems in AEW and how they can fix them, and I'll probably still do that video, but we're going to talk a lot more about that there because one of the things I will tell you about tonight's AEW Revolution 2023 is that there were very little problems. This was, without question, one of AEW's best pay per views of all time. This could have actually been the best show of all time. As I'm watching it, I'm debating in my head, okay, is it this one? Is it Revolution 2022, which I went to? Is it All Out 2021? I mean, they got so many of them. Like, you know what? What could be the best one? This one is without question top 3 or top 5, yo. This show was so good. Every single match delivered. I'm going to do a whole video on this, but the issues with AEW that they've had is really because of their television. AEW has some issues booking TV because they have a lot of wrestlers and they don't have that much TV time, right? They have a lot of guys under contract. They don't ever get enough time, or matches go too long, or doesn't have enough angles. I'm going to do a different video about that. But when it comes to actual, like, pay-per-views, AEW is usually, more often than not, a great pay-per-view purchase just for what you're going to get on the show. You know what I mean? It's like I said, even if you don't like Dynamite, right, which is a fair criticism, the pay-per-views are still kicking ass, and that to me is good. I want all wrestling to be good. I want WWE to be good, which it has been. Last 2 months have been phenomenal. And last 4 months really. I want AEW to be good, like tonight's pay-per-view. The TV leading up to it was not that great. Let's be honest. There was a lot of problems with the booking, but tonight I will credit Tony Khan for booking a good pay-per-view, but also, even though he did fuck up with the build-up to this show, in my opinion, right? I commend him because the results of tonight's card were exactly what they should have been. Very rarely do I watch a wrestling pay-per-view, and I've been watching wrestling since 1989, y'all. And very rarely am I able to 100% predict who's going to win, not based on predictability, based on where the story should go. And all of tonight's winners were people who should have won their matches to progress their careers. A lot of younger guys were made on AEW Revolution 2023. So TK should be proud of himself. This was a great show. And really, I don't want to give him all the credit because really the credit belongs to the talent. AEW's talent roster is phenomenal. And I know that TK has a hand in building that talent roster. But without question, AEW has a great roster, and I just want them to get utilized effectively. You understand? So let's talk about this pay-per-view. They opened up with the Lucha Bros and Mark Briscoe against the Varsity Athletes and Art Daivari. So this match, even though the Varsity Athletes and some of these guys aren't on Dynamite almost ever, like they're kind of part of that dark elevation B team. I mean, I'm sorry, but they are. This was a phenomenal performance by everybody, yo. Anytime you get Ray Phoenix in a ring and he gets to do flips and he gets to be cool and he gets to be creative, like, dude, that right there will make the match. That by itself will make the match. And as usual, guys, as usual, Ray Phoenix is the MVP of this match. If you're in my Discord server, which I know some of you are not, or if you've ever heard me talk about AEW, you know that I've put over Ray Phoenix. Ray Phoenix can take an average match and make it a classic. He's that talented, and he's got so many matches where he's the MVP. He's just incredible. Like, what a talent Ray Phoenix is, yo. And that's not to take away from Penta and everybody else, but just Ray Phoenix does things that very few people can do, and in a very, very good way. I enjoyed that. Okay, so the pay-per-view opened up with Ricky Starks and Chris Jericho. Now, this is the blow-off of this feud that I thought was blown off weeks ago when Starks beat Jericho already, but I guess they did in the rematch. This time, the Appreciation Society is banned from ringside. I said in a previous video that Ricky Starks, to me, is the future of AEW. I think he's one of the guys, based on his incredible charisma and promo ability, who went toe-to-toe with MJF. And if you can go toe-to-toe with MJF on the mic, you might be a possible world champion. You know what I'm saying? He's got it all. And he's a good worker. Chris Jericho put him over in this match. Like I said a minute ago, the right finish. Tony Khan picked the right finishes on this card, folks. So I'm going to give him a lot of credit for doing that. Him and his team. So basically, Ricky Starks beat Chris Jericho clean. I mean, he beat him clean. Rochambeau, 1, 2, 3. And that's it. It was just a wrestling match, and he beat him clean. The feud is over. Now what happens is Jericho remains a legend, and Ricky Starks gets elevated up to main event status. Now that he beat Chris Jericho, he's in the upper mid card. You understand? And when you're in the upper mid card, that means that the very next level you can go is main event. So he's on his way. And it's all because of Chris Jericho and what he did in this match. I commend him and I commend Ricky Starks, dude. Phenomenal opener. Then we had Jungle Boy Jack Perry versus Christian Cage in a final burial match. Guys, it's basically a fucking casket match, but they couldn't call it that because they could be considered ripping off WWE, but this was ripping off WWE, yo. It was basically a buried alive match, right, with a casket. Those of you who have been longtime gamers, remember how in SmackDown versus Raw on the PS2, they had like a casket match, but it was really like a buried alive match with a casket? Like, that's what this was. It was a combination because the casket was in the graveyard, right? The casket was in the graveyard, and you win by throwing your opponent in there and, closing the casket, right? It was a good match. It was the first, I guess you can say, hardcore blood feud type of match. There was like 4 of those on this card, and they were all different. These guys did a lot, though. These guys did a lot. Now, I do want to criticize TK real quick. The booking of this feud was not very good, okay? He didn't even really build it up until 2 weeks before this show. Now, I know they had history going back to All Out. I remember all that, right? And Christian got injured, but he could have had Christian cutting promos on Jack Perry every week, from home if he was hurt. He could have had Jungle Boy cutting promos. You could have still kept the feud in the minds of the fans. He took it away and then kind of brought it back. And I thought that was just weird. I get the continuity. I'm not complaining about that. But he could have built this up a lot more. So this match had blood. I mean, it had, everything you can think of. And the finish of the match was Jungle Boy is teasing doing a concerto, right? And this time he doesn't freeze. He hits the concerto. Now, I have to say this. Jungle Boy's concerto legit hit. It looked like, maybe I'm an idiot, but it looked like he freaking hit Christian right in the top of the head, yo. And the way you're supposed to do the concerto is, because wrestling is not real, you're supposed to basically whack the other side of the floor, right? That's how you protect your opponent. You don't really hit them in the head, you hit them on the other side of the floor, it makes the same sound effect, and the crowd thinks that you crack the guy's skull open. It's a very, very, very good illusion that wrestlers do, right? This looked like he actually hit him in the head. You know what I mean? Those of you who understand wrestling, you know what I'm talking about. But then Jungle Boy rolls his carcass into the damn casket, and boom, game over. Jungle Boy wins the feud. For perfect. You have Ricky Starks and Jungle Boy now being elevated by defeating Jericho and Christian. You got the 2 veterans, Vitamin C, for those of you longtime wrestling fans, right? And they just elevated Jungle Boy and Ricky Starks. This is exactly how you book a pay-per-view, ladies and gentlemen. Good work, TK. Then we had the House of Black, which is, of course, Alistair / Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Murphy, a.k.a. the Slayer of Rhea Ripley, versus the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. This was exactly what I wanted it to be, but again, just like the previous feud, there was very little buildup. They just showed up and surrounded the ring, and that was it. They could have had this feud brewing for months. And instead they chose to wait till the last minute. That to me I thought was weak. I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan. Now, with that being said, though, either way, this was phenomenal. This is the typical, and again, guys, I understand. I love Jim Cornette. He's funny as hell. And yes, these matches are absolute, like, choreographed spot fest, but it's also, that's what Lucha Libre is. I don't think people who understand wrestling or don't understand wrestling understand that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Malachi Black and his guys, they're doing American-Japanese hybrid lucha, right? And that's supposed to be wacky. It's not supposed to be super serious like the stuff that Cornette likes. So I'm a fan of all different types of wrestling as long as it's done right. And for when you compare this type of a match, right, and you compare it to previous matches like it that are this type of, setup, it was phenomenal. Like this was a great spot fest with psychology in it. Don Callis was hilarious on commentary as he tends to be, and I love that they actually had a video package for this match. AEW, I know that WWE can overdo it with the video packages, but AEW does not have enough, and they need it because, like I mentioned before, there's always a new fan watching, and if they miss the previous show or the storyline, you have to catch them up on it because they might be the first time they're watching and you want to educate the audience. So, just a phenomenal match, dude. Oh my God. So, the Young Bucks went for a Meltzer driver, and then Buddy Murphy hit Nick in the air he hit him in mid flip, and then he got hit with Dante's Inferno, and they win the trios titles. I am so happy this happened, yo. I love freaking the House of Black. I love everything about them. The cool entrance. Those three guys have a cool fucking look. They're badasses. Like, I love the House of Black, and I'm glad they won. Again, establishing more trios teams. Jamie Hayter, Saraya, and Ruby Soho for the AEW Women's title. I was not really looking forward to this match because I was not that excited for this feud. Again, it's been very sloppy how the women have been booked on Dynamite. Like, I'm confused. I'm not sure who the faces and heels are anymore. They turn them. I don't even know if Saraya's a face or a heel. Maybe I missed an episode or two. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe I did, but like, I don't remember them ever explaining these things. But in this match, there were even more turns. But the match itself was great. I was not looking forward to this, but this trios women's match was freaking awesome. These girls worked really hard. There was movement nonstop. Like there was, not to bring up, the ghost of wrestling's past, but there was total nonstop action. You understand what I'm saying? In this match. And that's exactly what it should have been. And it had to follow the freaking trios match. So you're going to have to do something. Now, after the match, what happened is Tony Storm started beating up on Britt Baker. And then Jamie Hayter and Saraya beat them up. And then Britt Baker comes in. And then Ruby Soho attacks her. And I think she turns on her, right? So, holy shit. So basically what it looks like they're doing is they're doing the AEW homegrown women versus the girls that came from WWE. Maybe it's just a coincidence, maybe that's not really the story, but it does feel like that's the story. And I'm okay with it if it is. It's just, so Ruby Soho's a heel now, which I'm okay with because she's been very underutilized since 2021. And hopefully they can do and I'm not saying to copy Damage Control. That's not what I'm saying. But to have a stable of heel women is a good idea for a women's division. Like, we need more things like that, like Damage Control, this group, the Beautiful People back in Total Nonstop Action. Heel women stables are underrated in my opinion. So it is what it is. Hangman Page versus Jon Moxley in a Texas Death Match. You already know what to expect here, yo. It's Jon Moxley, so if he's not bleeding, he's not comfortable. This motherfucker, yeah, you know what? You know how he freaking went to rehab and shit? You know what his favorite drink was before he went to rehab, bro? To Alcoholics Anonymous? Bloody Mary. Ha ha ha, very funny. No, this guy bleeds in like every match, right? I don't hate the dude, it's just come on. Now, I will say this. When freaking Hangman came out with the Ghost Riders in the Sky by the Outlaws, I was like, bro. I didn't even recognize the song until somebody in the Discord sent it over to me. I was like, wait, that sounds familiar. But, so Jon Moxley pulled out the fork for this match. The one that Homicide and, of course, Abdullah the Butcher made famous. And he starts stabbing Hangman in the face with the fork, peeling his skin off. It was so disgusting. This match was so freaking disgusting. There were barbed wire wrap chairs, barbed wire tables. They scratched barbed wire on Adam Page's back. There was barbed wire on Jon Moxley's face. Like, they pulled out everything. This felt a lot, very, very much like the infamous Full Gear Kenny Omega Jon Moxley match, the lights out match, right? Remember that with the rat traps and shit? This right this right here felt like that. They did so many nasty things with barbed wire and suplexes, and they raked it across the back. Both, it was double juice. So what I loved, oh my god, there were so many cool spots here. Moxley hit the Death Rider, and then first of all, they brought a brick into the fucking ring. And when they brought the brick in, I was like, what is this, bro? Home Alone 2 Lost in New York? You're going to hit the man with a brick? At least it wasn't a cinder block like back during the Attitude Era. But, so the guy, there's a brick, they're hitting shit with the brick, right? So this guy hits the Death Rider, and then he curb stomps Adam Page's face on the brick. Bro, that's a shout out to his boy Seth Rollins. The Shield will live forever, ladies and gentlemen. The Shield, the top guys in the business are the Shield, bro. You know what I'm saying? Roman Reigns also. Anyways, so Hangman Page wins the match with a buckshot lariat, and then he hangs Moxley with like a chain over the top rope, and Moxley taps out. So trip out on this one, bro. Trip out on this one. On this show, both Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson tapped out to other men. Does this mean that the Blackpool Combat Club is finished? Like, they could be going in this direction because both of them tapped out and they let down Master Regal. You know what I mean? I don't even know what to say about that. But anyways, Jon Moxley tapped out for the first time in AEW and put over Hangman huge. This could have been the biggest win of Hangman's career. I'll be honest with y'all. Think about this, what I'm about to tell you. I think that this match, I think Hangman winning this match not only puts him in contention against MJF as the next big match, but this, to me, was more important than him winning the world title. I know some of y'all think that's stupid, but his world title reign was not very impressive. Like, it could have been better, right? And he had some great matches, but it just didn't really click with people, like Kenny Omega's did, or Jon Moxley's did, or Jericho's. And that's not necessarily his fault. I'm not blaming him. But this match right here, I think, did more for him to show how tough he is, the pain he's willing to go through. And when you do that kind of shit, the fans start to love you even more, whether or not you're world champion, which is why I'm saying that this could have been more important than the world title for him, because he needed a win like this, bro. He made Jon Moxley tap out. Wardlow and Samoa Joe, another freaking good match. I thought this could have been not very good because of these guys' styles. They had the perfect wrestling match. It was sort of like the Brock matches from WWE where they're doing big move, big move, big move, big move. It sort of felt like that, even though this one had a bit more psychology. I loved the finish. Samoa Joe tried to do the powerbomb, but Wardlow gets out of it with a headbutt, and then he chokes out Samoa Joe. And Joe's arm went down. He lost by submission. That's 3 guys that have lost by submission to newer talent. Wardlow won the match and regained the TNT title in a great match with a great finish. And up next is him and Powerhouse Hobbs. But dude, that was just a phenomenal win for Wardlow. I'm not the biggest Wardlow fan. I liked him more during the MJF feud, but he's starting to rebuild himself again. You got the young guys beating the veterans. The Guns versus the Acclaimed versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal versus Orange Cassidy and Danhausen. This was the comedy match of the show. Yes, it was for the tag team titles, but this match was the complete opposite of any of the other matches on this show, including the trios match. This match had the same energy as the trios match, the same kind of energy, but it it was more comedic. Like Jeff Jarrett was in there doing stuff out of the 80s. He's busting out the guitar. You got like, Max Caster doing his wacky raps. He's doing the strut. Danhausen casting spells. Like this was complete freaking comedy. This was just total comedy. Everybody knew their role. They didn't take themselves seriously, and it was a perfect freaking comedy match. I would have probably put this match on earlier in the show. I think Tony Khan wanted to add some levity here after the big bloody match, have this kind of match, so I understand why. But I feel like this match would be a great match to get fans warmed up to the show. You know what I mean? Either way, it doesn't matter. I really enjoyed this one, man. There were no bad matches on this show. After the match, the guns are in the ring, and Renee was going to interview them, and I'm already thinking, okay, someone's going to come out. It's FTR. I told my Discord server FTR's coming out 3 minutes before they came out because I just smelled it. I could just tell. FTR comes out. The one team they want to face against for the AEW tag titles, I guess FTR has re-signed with AEW because there was a rumor that they were their contract was up. So they're going to be coming back for a time. I don't know how long or what their new deal is, but it was a beautiful freaking return, and they want the tag team titles. They hit the Shatter Machine and the Spike Pile Driver, and it got a huge pop, bro. Huge pop. Phenomenal. Then we had our main event, MJF versus Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute Iron Man match. The Iron Man matches it's hard to have good hour-long matches, right? It's very difficult, not just on the cardio, but on the storytelling, because you have to keep fans engaged for an hour. And nowadays, with short attention spans, having an Iron Man match on pay-per-view could have been a bit risky as far as losing eyeballs or interest in the actual story being told in the match. You understand what I'm saying? Not necessarily the pay-per-view, but just the match itself. So, it's difficult. Having a good Iron Man match is difficult. I've always liked the Rock Triple H one from Judgment Day 2000, and I like the Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar one from SmackDown in 2003. Those are phenomenal Iron Man matches. This one had the same energy. The Bret Hart Shawn Michaels Iron Man match wasn't really like this one, but they did borrow some things. The opening parts of the match, they tried everything in this match. And that's why it was so good. It was a phenomenal match. They did, first of all, MJF had this awesome entrance with the violinist players. And this is what I love about wrestling, dude. This is that sports entertainment shit that they try to vilify. Dude, that's what makes wrestling awesome. Having cool WrestleMania entrances, having a lot of fireworks, like, that's what makes wrestling awesome. It's not just the moves and the stories. It's also the production. You know, you go to one of these shows, it's like the whole building is rumbling. It's like a big party. That's why people who are not wrestling fans, if you take them to wrestling shows, they'll become fans because they'll understand that weird sort of like energy with a lot of people in one place. You know, it's kind of addicting, you know? And so it's hard to keep that, you know, with an Iron Man match. These guys did it. Early in the match, it was a lot of comedy. There's a hilarious part in the match where, oh, I forgot to mention, in the tag match, I love the part where Billy Gunn hit the freaking crotch chop in the Famouser. I love that part, yo. I popped. But anyways, so lots of comedy. There was a part where MGF went outside the ring and he goes, "Did I lose a star, Dave?" And I was fucking done. I was done, yo. That might be one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Oh my God. He freaking threw a drink on a kid and Taz popped. And then he said, "Am I going to lose the star, Dave?" Oh, I love this match. I love professional wrestling. I love pro wrestling. So Bryan Danielson's doing Jushin Liger poses, y'all. These guys are like 15 minutes in and they're doing like wacky reversals and lucha. They're doing MJF did a super kick and did the Shawn Michaels pose. That's Danielson's teacher. They start doing more high risk stuff, and then Bryan starts winning. He goes up 1-0, and then MJF low blows Brian to make it 2-0, and then he pins Brian twice. So he pins him 1, 2, 3 to win one fall, and then 1, 2, 3 to win another. So now it's 2-2. That was really creative stuff. They start wrestling a bit more. It's good. This is all good stuff, yo. Brian then. I actually, okay, no. MJF went up 3-2. That's right. That's when Brian was bleeding. Yeah. Okay, as the match progressed, right? As the match progressed, it got more and more violent. You know what I mean? And they started adding more blood. It wasn't quite like the Texas Deathmatch blood. It was more like the I'm a warrior and I'm wounded kind of blood. Does that make sense? I hope if you guys understand storytelling and wrestling, you know what I'm trying to say, right? So MJF tapped out to the Regal stretch because Regal's the reason this whole feud started, right? So now it's tied 3-3, and they go all the way to the end, and it's tied 3-3 because the time ran out. But then what happens is Tony Schiavone runs down to the ring and tells Justin Roberts that Tony Khan, because it was a draw, 3-3 draw. Tony Khan wants the sudden death rules. And then what happens is they start wrestling more. MJF tries to cheat, of course. They do it. They did a lot of really good near falls where I thought it was over. Danielson does the freaking half Boston Crab from Lance Storm, one of his great opponents. MJF, so what happens is MJF hits freaking Danielson with the oxygen tank. Because what happened was when they were both passed out, after the 60 minutes, they were giving him oxygen to make it seem like these guys were like really exhausted. It was very good. This is very smart stuff. Very good agent shit right here. Very, very good work. So MJF puts him in the label lock. And Brian, they tease Brian like his arm falling to 3, but Brian's fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And then he taps out. The fact that Samoa Joe, Jon Moxley, and Bryan Danielson put over the younger guys. Jericho put over Ricky Starks. All the young guys got put over, y'all. The veterans put over the young guys tonight. Phenomenal pay-per-view. I really hope AEW gives us really good television because I have not been a fan of Dynamite for months and I want it to improve. I'm not saying I hate the show, but there's been a lot of inconsistencies. But this show was so good that I really want AEW to succeed. I know how much money is being put into this thing. I actually know how much. And it's one of those things where I want them to do well, but sometimes TK is his own worst enemy. You know what I mean? Anyways, phenomenal pay-per-view. I hope the next one's good because I'm going to Double or Nothing. Take care.